Hello and welcome. My name is Paul and this is my wife's Astra J. It's 2014. It's got about 142,000 miles on it. It's got a rattling timing chain and it's a big job because it's behind the gearbox. Checking I'm pointing in the proper direction. It's behind the gearbox. So the subframe has to come off, complete subframe has to come off with the lower arms, the rack and everything has to come off. It's easier with the subframe. The subframe has to come off, the gearbox has to come off, obviously drive shafts, the Egr Cooler, everything at the top of this engine here that goes across the top of the drive plate, I think they call it. So yeah, this is just just along the steps of the way that I'm doing it, basically what I had to do what I had to do, and video inside. I'll try and get as much as I can of the stuff inside, what I do with the timing chain and stuff like that. So here we go. What you're looking at there is the timing chain, which in Vauxhall's infinite wisdom decided to put it on the rear of the engine behind the gearbox. So you have to take off the gearbox, you have to take the injectors out, the cam cover off, the subframe has to come off to get the gearbox off, which is not unusual, but so yeah, and that's the back plate which is behind the gearbox. You have to take the sump off, which is over there, as you can see there. So the problem with these timing chains is they rattle. When they first start up, they rattle for a few seconds. It's a common problem, and it's basically due to the tensioner waiting for the oil pressure to take the slack out of the chain. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe that the tensioner is on the load side and not the tension side as you would normally find it, which is unusual for these engines apparently, which causes problems. This is 140,000 miles. It's always had a rattle when it started up. It went away immediately after it started. Knowing this nightmare, I left it alone. But this is the wife's car, and it started to do it, to rattle, randomly all the time, which was starting to concern me, obviously, because I know that it was starting to eat itself. It wasn't horrific, it was just a small noise. But I don't know whether you can see it, but there's supposed to be a guide on here, a plastic guide, and I'm pointing here, which goes on here. I don't know where, you won't be able to see it, but it's already started eating away at the metal. It's wearing away where it's flapping about. All the other guides are actually intact, which I'm surprised. So yes, that's currently where I am at the moment. So I'm just going to get it timed up. There is a timing kit which goes as a cam locking tool which goes through the casting of the head into that hole from the back edge, which locks that in place. And all of the timing chain has coloured links, so you basically just line up all the coloured links on the chain, and then on the crankshaft pulley you take the crankshaft pulley off, and there's actually a locking kind of piece that you put in place, and it locks it. So there you go. If you're ever thinking about getting one of these done, don't. I'll update you what I find. Okay, so underneath, So I've used a ratchet on the crank pulley and just turned it. You have to keep turning it and turning it and turning it and turning it and turning it until that hole appears at the top. Those two line up as I showed you there. That dot lines with that. No, I can't actually see that. Oh yeah, okay, I can see it in the camera. That coloured link lines up with that in there. And there's a, is it there? Where is it? There. I think there's the hole there. So push it back in, put the pin in, and then you can take the chain off. So there you go. So this is the Egr Cooler, which bolts to the side of the block here. All this has to come out. The throttle body, the Egr, everything. It's a massive job. So I also had to take out the take off the windscreen wipers and the scuttle to put this bar across to support the engine, because there isn't actually any inner wings to speak of, and the only sort of decent metal is this ledge underneath here, which is what this is for, to support the engine. So I've turned the engine round and put it in the cam locking tool, so that goes in through the casting there, and then it goes in to the hole in there, and you can just see. So they're geared. So these two are geared together, and then the chain then goes down, gets the fuel pump, the high pressure fuel pump. So you can just see here, can you see that? There's a dot, and then you've got coloured links either side. So you have to basically turn the engine round. So that's the locking tool. It goes in that one, and then basically you have to have these all lined up with the dot. I think that's the fuel pump, and I think is that the crank, and that's just an idler, I think. So two dots, and that they have to line up, and then obviously you take all the guides off, and then there's a pin that in the kit they supply you with that, so you just push that back and then put the pin in, and then that releases the tension on the chain. So yeah, let me show you what I've done from underneath. Cleaning up, removed all the old gasket, removed all the chains, tensioner, guides, everything else like that, and the pump chain. Got all the new stuff down there. Just been cleaning up the sump, and I've just found what I believe to be in the pump strainer. That bit. It goes on there. I think it was due, don't you? Okay, I just wanted to show you what were the remainders of the timing chain and the guides, more importantly the guides. This is, basically how it came off. This is the guide that goes down the right hand side of the engine inside. I mean, that was literally that. I didn't break that. That's how that came off. And you can see that the tabs are just snapped off of there. I mean, that's how that was. That was, is there a bit missing on there? Is it supposed to be like that? Don't know. And this is the worst one. This is the one at the bottom. This is the ones that always go. I mean, just look at the state of that. That's just horrific. Finding these bits inside the engine are just in the bottom of the sump. It's just falling to pieces. So that's pretty bad. Good job it was done when it was done. So pump chain's on, and the new tensioner. It's got a spring, and the back plate all comes with it. You have to take this pulley off, undo that bolt, just take this chain off, put a little bit of Loctite, cleaned it all up, cleaned the threads, cleaned inside there, blew it out of an airline, bit of Loctite. Probably don't have to, need to, but it's quite an important bolt for the oil pump. The new chain and the new guide there, and the plastic guide. There's a new guide up there with a plastic guide on it. And then this is the new tensioner guide, and this is the tensioner. So basically that lines up with that. That dot lines up with that. And you see it on there. It's focusing on the pipe. But anyway, there's a dot up there. So I've just got to pull the pin on the tensioner. There you go. And that's it. And then oil pressure comes in to the back. So this is spring loaded, but this is also an oil gallery, and there's oil pressure that goes in and assists the tensioner. So there you go. Okay, just a little update. There's not a lot of information on the internet, on YouTube or wherever, about these engines and about these chains, so I haven't done a step by step. It just takes too long to record it all. But basically, the chain's obviously gone on, as you saw, and then the plate, this thing here, basically cleaned up the mating surfaces. It's pretty obvious, of the cover and behind. Cleaned up all the mating surfaces, cleaned up all the mating surfaces of the sump, cleaned all the inside of the sump out, new oil filter, basically silicone. They're stuck on the sump, and this plate is siliconed on from factory. So the plate's been siliconed on, and all the bolts have been put in, again with the sump. That's all been cleaned and siliconed on. There's a new flywheel because the old one was worn, wasn't knocking, but it was, you know, gonna do it now. And a new clutch is going on there. Again, the clutch wasn't worn massively, but 140,000 miles, it was original clutch. It was due to be changed. The Egr Cooler, this thing here, that's all gone back on. And all the relevant pipe work and clips and all the solenoids and stuff for the Egr and the DPF, all gone back on. Let's take the starter off, so that's gone back on. There's just two bolts. There's one just there you can get to with an extension, and then there's one just above which you can get to with an extension. So that's it really. I'm just waiting on the clutch and a new slave cylinder. That's the old one down there. Okay, so this is the top end. You can see the Egr Cooler down there. The throttle body back on. That's the actual Egr valve there. That's the actual valve. Various pipes and stuff all back connected. So there's just a few more bits and pieces. So literally just got to get the clutch on and gearbox back on. So I don't want to start putting too much back in all these discs and pipes and stuff. You'll just get in the way of putting the gearbox on when I could do that afterwards. New rocker cover gasket. This one's gone a bit hard, so I've got a new one of those coming. So that means that can go back on. And yeah, so we're getting there. New clutch is on. Everything's all ready for the gearbox to go back on. So new slave cylinder is on, and the hydraulic pipe goes up there. So that, bit of grease on there, so the clutch has all been lined up. So it's ready to go in, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, so now we've got the gearbox back on. And then it's all bolted up. It's back on the engine mount, so it's supported. The support has gone. So this has just got to button a few things up, so I've got to put the rocker cover on. I've got to clean up down all the injector holes, clean up the mating surface. I've got to clean up the injectors. I'm not sure what's going on with that one. It was running fine, but that one looks a bit, that first one there, looks a bit odd, doesn't it? But I'll give it a clean up. New copper seals on there, put all that back together. So yeah, let me show you underneath. Intermediate shaft is on and the support there. These 3 bolts here are for the engine stabilizer, which goes on the subframe. And then these 2 bolts here bolt through the front mount, which again is on the subframe. So there you go, just got to start connecting some stuff up, and we're getting there. I've got most of it buttoned up now, so this is now the subframe that's going in. Struggled just about on my own to get this up here in stages. So yeah, basically everything has to line up. That goes up in there, and then there's one the other side. We've got that one there, which goes up in there, one the other side, and then this is obviously the steering column, which has got to go up in there. So basically you just have to slowly take it up. And then there's the wiring for the power steering, because it's electric power steering. So that's basically it. This just clips to the subframe, as does this. I don't know what this is for exactly, but this is for the ABS sensors. So yeah, I'm going to struggle on with this and see where that gets me. Right, there you go, it's all pretty much back together. Also I've got to put the scuttle back on, the windscreen wipers back on, engine cover, but that's pretty much it. Underneath the subframe's on, I'll show you that in a bit. I haven't done the front suspension yet. I have started it, started the second time. First time it didn't start, obviously because it had air in it, because obviously all these injectors have been out, you know, this all have had air in it. But it has a tank, it has a pump in the tank, so it pretty much primed most of it itself. It started on the second time, clattered a bit, for you'd expect, and then it quietened down, so it sounds terrible on video, but I'm gonna start it anyway. Unfortunately I didn't do it before, but yeah, here we go. So it doesn't clatter now when you first start it, which it used to. How long that's going to do that for, I don't know. That's in gear, so the clutch is working, so that's good. So it sounds as it should to me. That's good. I'm happy. Okay, right, well, this is just an update just to say it's all done. Scuttle's all in, the windscreen wipers are all in, the engine cover's back on.
gearbox, the interesting one. I've forgotten what the model number is now. MB32 or something like that. It's quite a common Vauxhall box, 6-speed box. Apparently there's 2 revisions after 2012. Apparently they updated it with an oil gallery. There's an oil gallery which helps lubricate the 6-speed bearing or something like that, and the bearings are bigger or something. Anyway, so on the bottom, right on the bottom, which is like the diff casing, there's a drain. There's a 9 mil. Was it? Sorry, 8 mil hex. And right on the very top of the gearbox, there is an 8 mil hex. Let me see if I can show you that, because you can just about see it. They say, oh, you know, to top up the gearbox oil, you have to take the battery out, and you know, you don't have to do that. Where are we? So can you just see that bit of blue tissue? That bit of blue? That's the hex plug. I used a bit of tissue to stop the nut falling out, or the nut falling off the end of the hex. Where's it gone? There. To top it up, because when I topped it up, I hadn't put all of this back together. So I went on the internet and had a look, and it said 2.3 litres. And because there's no drain plug, you can't just top it up until it dribbles out and then put it in. So you don't really know what the level is. So I went on what was on the internet at 2.3 litres. Apparently it's 2.5 dry, so it keeps 0.2 or 0.3 litres in the box. You can never get that out. So they say put 2.3 litres in. But then they're also recommending on these particular gearboxes to put 2.7 litres in them, because they suffer from overheating, or, you know, from what I've read. So anyway, so I topped it up with another 0.3 litres of gearbox oil. So that's that. There's a few codes, obviously, from the engine being the ECU, because I took the ECU out. The battery, there's a few codes, so I cleared those. I had to clear those twice, weirdly, but now they're fine. I haven't driven it yet. I'm not in a position to drive it at the moment. Refreshed the coolant. It's got new, dropped the coolant as drain plug down there on the bottom of the radiator. It's just like a little thumb turn with you can put a bit of hose on it. I drain that off, which is down there. It didn't look too bad, to be honest. I mean, it's probably the container that's making it look pretty crappy, but I thought it's probably, unless there's a problem with the water pump or something, the chances of this ever getting refreshed coolant in it are very slim. So just had fresh coolant in it, so I've just got to drive it, get it warm, check the level, because it's probably going to need some more in there. All the bumpers back on again. So yeah, the only thing that I need to sort is you can just see that blue tissue paper there in the aircon pump. The aircon hose in this had worn through. It had been rubbing on this fan. It had worn through the pipe. It's been like that for ages. The wife hasn't really been bothered, but we have 2 dogs and it gets quite damp in there, so it's handy to have the aircon on, not for the cooling, but just for removing the moisture. So I need to get a second-hand pipe, because I looked into getting it repaired. I know I'm waffling on here, but I looked at getting it repaired, and it was like £200 plus the VAT, and they're that new pretty much from Vauxhall, so you can probably buy a second-hand one for 40 quid or something like that, as long as it's in good condition. So that's that. Right, let me show you underneath. Okay, so this is the underneath. All the bolts are back in again now. I put a bit of copper grease on all of the bolts that went back, even though there's nothing wrong with them, into the subframe, and also you can just see it there. It just helps in thinking in the future. It just helps people, mechanics in the future. So I had new brake pads in it because they were low. All the wiring is now clipped back. Under tray is all back on. The bumper's back on. Clips and stuff. So that's pretty much it, really. Right, so there you go. It's all done. Just to put an end to the video, to say, if you've got this far, thanks for watching. It's pretty much the first video that I've done
that's of anything watchable on my channel, because I haven't really done anything on there. I just wanted to put this at the end just to put in the comments if you liked watching this kind of thing. I do this stuff all the time. I'm not a full-time mechanic. I have the ability to be able to use this workshop from a good friend of mine, and you know, it just made doing this, as I say, it was on the wife's car. It had to be done. It was worth scrap if it wasn't done. So I do this kind of stuff all the time, buying cars from, you know, traders, friends, and I'm all, you know, fixing them up or repairing them, wheel bearings, or doing whatever. Normally on my driveway. I don't normally record them, but you know, if that's something that you want me to do, if you're interested, then let me know. Just put a comment down in there, and we'll see you again next time, hopefully. Okay, bye.